Hopefully you won't hear noisy dogs, because...
You know what? It adds to the fun.
All right.
I appreciate you.
Creepy, cryptic, otherworldly.
Oddity Files is a paranormal podcast where we find creepy shit on the internet. Not always creepy, sometimes interesting, sometimes cryptid, otherworldly, curses, hauntings, all the stuff and all the things. Welcome to the show. Awesome. Guys, welcome to another episode of Oddity Files, the podcast. I'm Kitsie Duncan. Clayton is on hiatus at the moment, but I did bring along an extra special, one of my favorite humans. Yes, I have a lot of favorite humans, but he's at the top. His name is Aaron Sagers. Aaron, welcome to an episode of Oddity Files.
Hey, Kitsie, thanks for having me, and hello to everyone out there in Oddity Files land.
Now, Aaron's paranormal roots go way back. He's kind of a big deal. If you didn't know, you're about to find out. He had a show briefly on the Travel Channel that was so cool. So it was like TMZ, and they would go out and get celebrity ghost stories. And he was like the big wig in the office and running all the stuff and all the things. So does that sum it up? I mean, I don't know. That's what I saw it as.
Yeah, I mean, the Paranormal Paparazzi, I executive produced it with Zach Bagans of Ghost Adventures, and the idea behind it was to combine lifestyle and entertainment and the paranormal. And it was sort of inspired by my paranormalpopculture.com website. So I was a co-creator on the show, and so we would always kind of combine stories that existed within the paranormal realm from a lifestyle component, but then we would match it up with celebrity ghost stories or celebrity paranormal stories. So maybe you have a guy that's in Texas that's preparing for the zombie apocalypse and he has a bunker. And then the next segment would be an interview with Norman Reedus from The Walking Dead. So I was very proud of it. And, you know, it was along with, Portals to Hell and Paranormal Lockdown and Paranormal Challenge. I've done a lot of shows, but Paranormal Paparazzi certainly was my baby as the show that I helped create and executive produce.
It was so much fun. So, and then Paranormal Pop Culture, that was the precursor to the show?
Yeah, so that was a website that I started in 2009, and the idea is kind of examining the crossover of the paranormal and entertainment, sort of how one influences the other. And, my background is as a journalist. I'm not a paranormal investigator. I'm a journalist and a researcher, and I look into folklore and mythology a lot. And something that I discovered was, the ghost stories tend to influence belief. Belief tends to influence entertainment. So I like looking at those patterns and seeing how one overlaps with the other. For instance, when people report seeing certain types of paranormal phenomena, I'm always curious about what types of movies they're watching, because there might be a pattern. There might be a correlation between what they're reporting and what they're viewing for entertainment. But that's not to say that the stories are not real. It's just that maybe their visual language is referencing entertainment, is referencing pop culture. So that's kind of how they're describing the thing that they're seeing based on the movies that they consume.
No, absolutely. And sometimes, watching the paranormal shows that are out there on TV, I wonder if that in turn influences evidence. That's actually a very good point, because there are no written rules on paranormal activity, what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're witnessing. It's all just kind of, we just say what we're feeling, and it may be influenced by things we've seen before on this location or things like that. I like to think they don't, because we tend to get different evidence at a location than like the big guys get at the same locations. But it's actually a very good point, and it kind of mind-blowing right there for sure. And that's paranormalpopculture.com, right?
Yes. And I mean, and I've examined all kinds of topics such as doppelgangers and haunted dolls, and sort of when we see a new movie come out that is about one of these topics, what's it tied to, or even, for instance, when the live action Aladdin movie came out, I did a whole deep dive on the idea of jinn and genies and sort of how we got from these entities that are referenced in the Quran to the blue jolly genie that we see in Aladdin, how we got from point A to point G, I guess. But and to your point, as far as evidence, I don't think that I kind of wonder if I saw right now a spectral lady in white walking around my home.
Why she always got to be in white?
Well, this is my thought, is that if I were to see that right now, am I indeed seeing that, or is perhaps an entity presenting itself that way because maybe somehow they've gotten this glimpse in my head or whatever of this is what they view, what they think a ghost is supposed to look like, or this is their visual language, and I'm going to match that so that way they kind of understand what's happening. There's a lot of stories within ufology as well of basically downloaded information, contactees and eyewitnesses download certain kinds of information. Well, maybe the entity or the phenomena itself could download information and say, okay, they think I'm supposed to look like this. That's how I'm going to look, because this is just going to make this go a little bit easier.
Yeah, a lot less explaining going on for sure. That makes complete sense. I think we have a mutual friend, Ty Gowan. I believe I've seen you guys tweet each other back and forth, but he brought that up when I had him on the show. How is it spirits reacting, showing us what we can handle, or is it made up? Nobody knows. Maybe people see a lady in white because they, like you said, saw a movie about a lady in white haunting a staircase.
I mean, patterns are very important, and we seek meaning, and we seek patterns, and we seek meaning in patterns. So, yeah, I mean, I don't, just because I say that doesn't mean that I dismiss the phenomena. I just, to your point, I think that it is paranormal because nothing is currently defined by scientific explanation. It's outside the realm of scientific explanation at the moment. So we're all working off of theories. There's no right, no wrong as far as answers go. And, it is, so it actually I find that interesting and exciting. It annoys me when people present things as rules, because there's not rules that we know of associated with this. And yes, I do know and love Ty.
There's no rules.
Yeah.
Ty is amazing, and he totally blew my mind with explanations of theories he has, and it just really made me think, and you kind of brought me back to that. So you've got paranormal pop culture, you had paranormal paparazzi, and you've been on all the shows that I love and adore on the Travel Channel. But now you've got a new show, which is one of my all-time favorites. I talk about on this show all the time. You are on Paranormal Caught on Camera, correct?
Yes, I'm one of the panelists on Paranormal Caught on Camera.
It's perfect. I love that they show this stuff that ends up in my timeline before it actually ends up on the show, and they're either debunking it or buying into it and explaining what it could be, what it might not be. I think it's just a really fun watch, 1,000,000%. And I'm so excited you're a part of it now.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a really exciting show to be a part of, largely because it's based on asking questions. And if you pay attention to really what the panelists say, I don't think too many people are outwardly dismissing or debunking. It's more, I think the mission is more about what could it be? And yes, basically, this doesn't look like, if you see, what appears to be a cryptid running across some sort of forested landscape, looking at that and saying, well, that looks a little too big to be a human that looks maybe the way that's moving across that terrain is very fast, very unnatural. So it's kind of posing questions and analyzing. And instead of coming up with a clear definition, it's kind of indulging in the theories. And I like that.
Yes, I do too. I do have to admit the cryptid footage is some of my favorites. I'm always going to think it's Bigfoot because he's my guy. But like they just explain, well, how it's not this, but how it could be this. And I like that. They're not giving definitive answers. Oh, this is absolutely a ghost, but it's opinion, it's facts, and it's really freaking fun videos to watch for sure. I mean, I'll watch some of them and I'm like, now, come on. I could probably say that it could be this. But if these people are excited enough about this footage to send it into the show, I think, one, they have to be prepared for people like me going, oh, that's bullshit, But I'm not the one that's on the show. But I think it's fun, it's exciting, and so much is caught on camera nowadays. Everybody has a camera in their pocket today. Well,
not just in their pocket, but everyone has a camera on their laptop or on their work computer. Everyone has a camera. I have a dog nanny cam for when I leave that keeps an eye on my dogs to make certain they're not like barking and getting too riled up, or a doorbell cam, or traffic cams, or security cameras at grocery stores and retailers. So all around us there's these cameras that are documenting our daily life and dashboard cameras.
Oh yeah.
So the possibility of capturing phenomena has exponentially increased. It's been blown wide open. So yeah, I think that's interesting. And, I do agree. Like, I don't look at every single piece of footage and say, oh yeah, that's legit, or I definitely don't think that. But I do like to place myself in the mind of the person documenting the footage. So
yes.
And what they must have been going through when they captured this. Or if maybe I don't entirely buy into it, maybe I think what someone else might be thinking if they were in a similar situation, or how someone might react if they saw, a strange light above their home.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the UFO footage on that show is whoa every time. I think it was either yesterday morning or this morning. I watch Travel Channel while I do my hair and all that stuff. And there was an unidentified flying light, as we'll call it, that all these other little unidentified flying lights came falling out of it. And I'm like, the fuck is that? No way. But then, there's no explanation for it. And it's obviously too crappy to be CGI, but it's something and it gets your mind thinking.
Well, and yeah, I agree. And you kind of bring up a point that rattles around my brain a lot when you say like too crappy to be CG. There is this kind of quality conversation and debate that I think can be had right now, because when you see something too grainy, the go-to response is like, well, it's hard to really see anything. It's too grainy. It's hard to determine or decipher, so what can we really make of that? But when it's too clear or too crisp, or the resolution is too high, well, that must be fake, because that's just too clear. That's too good. Like that's that's just like CG. That's a load of bull. But my thought is like, that's what you want. Like you want the great, clear, crisp footage, and the quality of cameras is such that if we were to capture it, would we even know it? Would we really believe it, or would we think, that's too good? That's that's just Hollywood effects or laptop effects. That's something that someone created on their own computer. It must not be anything really noteworthy.
Yeah,
it's a thing that I just kind of go back and forth. Do I want really clear, or do I want grainy, or do I want something in between?
It's human nature. It's never enough, and unless it's like right in front of us and we can touch it and go, oh my God, that's an alien. I'm touching it. Look, he's squishy. People are always going to be like, there's always going to be somebody calling bullshit. Always.
And that also just seems kind of rude to be poking at the alien and saying they're squishy. And that's how we start. That's how we start like intergalactic wars, Kitsie.
It'll be me. It'll be all my fault.
Yeah.
They'll have the big pot belly and I'll be doing like the Pillsbury Doughboy going, hee hee hee. Yeah. Well, probably. Anyway. And you've got a podcast now too that I just learned about last night when I was on your Facebook Live on Aaron Sager's on Facebook.
Yes, it's called Merica, and it started as a bit of a quarantine/isolation project, but also something that I had been meaning to launch for a while. I co-host it with Britt Emmy, and she's a friend of mine. And really, the inception of it was I work in the paranormal field. I've operated in the paranormal field and entertainment industry for a very long time, and it's really easy to kind of get caught up in your own ideas and theories and talk to other people that are thinking the same thing. It creates a bit of an echo chamber. And also it looks a bit, I guess, homogenized when it's a field primarily dominated by white men, older white men, typically.
Yeah.
So bringing, co-hosting this with Britt, who is a younger millennial woman who has a different kind of perspective on a lot of things, is just really interesting. And we also, we talk about the paranormal, we talk about urban legends, we also talk about true crime. And that's, yeah, and she has a lot of expertise in that. Well, not expertise in true crime. She's never committed a true crime to my knowledge.
God, I hope not.
But
and I hope you're recording remotely if she did.
I know, right? But she's definitely a true crime fangirl and a spooky enthusiast. So together we kind of joined forces and approach things from a different place and with our respective, experience and background.
That's awesome. She sounds like my kind of girl. So I'm definitely going to subscribe to Merica. I'm sure it's on all the podcast apps and all the stuff and things.
Yes, wherever fine podcasts are served.
I like that. So I was going to tell a paranormal in the news story, but actually my story this week kind of has some paranormal in the news. And he's actually somebody and I believe have worked with on several occasions. But I don't know if you're on the Instagram or not. But yesterday, Mr. Zach Baggins got on and said, this man is so freaking smart. Everybody's on lockdown. Everybody's on quarantine. But he has this entire haunted museum that I'm so jealous of every day. It's just like something that sticks me in the side. I want one so bad. He has been filming and investigating his haunted museum for a mini series that will come out later in the year. He's a fucking genius. I love to hate him, but I love to love him even more. But at the end of this, and we're recording this on Wednesday, and on Tuesday night is when he posted this, and he's supposed to open the Dybbuk Box. Have you heard this?
Yeah. And I saw that it's a 4-part miniseries on Travel Channel. It begins Thursday, June 11th, actually. Ghost Adventures Quarantine. So he's going to explore his haunted mansion or haunted museum in Las Vegas and open up the Dybbuk Box to, quote, investigate its sinister influence.
Oh, look, you pulled all that information up. You're so smart. I just winged it. Well, so have you been to the museum?
I have been to the museum, yes. About a year and change ago was the last time I was there. But and yeah, I've worked with Zach on a couple occasions. As I said, we produced the Paranormal Paparazzi together. So I've seen the way Zach's brain works, and he is definitely a smart guy and an entrepreneur, and I think it is pretty brilliant that he generated this TV show in such a short amount of time during this quarantine. It's smart stuff.
He's so smart. I was like, I'm not worthy, Zach. You are a genius. Now, if I had a haunted museum myself, I would have just investigated it and probably forgot to film it. But he remembered and brought his crew and they quarantined together, and it's so fucking smart. I love him. But I went to the museum about 2 years ago, and talk about smart. It's beautiful. It is every marketing person's wet dream. And he's got it all. He does. Everything but Annabelle, you know?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. When is that going to happen?
If anyone were to be able to get the real Annabelle, I would say Zach would be able to do it. And yeah, I mean, like, the thing is that Zach is definitely a believer. And so let me say this about Zach, is that he's not a guy that's just trying to sell a ticket or get ratings for a TV show and is doing it without having a true belief behind it. Zach's all in. Like he believes, and like everything he puts out there, I truly think is something that he does put his belief behind, and that includes this Dybbuk box, which, you know, he said that this is one of the scariest things that he's dealt with at the museum, that the spirit activity is increasing during this kind of lockdown, during this quarantine time. And according to Zach, opening the Dybbuk box is a moment that's going to live with him forever.
Oh, I'm sure. I am absolutely sure. Guys, have you heard of dyedinhouse.com? This is pretty much the coolest thing ever. Ever feel like somebody's watching you in your house and you don't know why, and you're the only one in the house? Did you know real estate brokers are not obliged to tell you if someone died in the house unless you ask? Yep, I found that one out the hard way. I mean, it's certainly not a checkbox on a Zillow site, now is it? So, are you looking at houses and don't want to move into a murder house? I mean, I do, but I understand that it's not for everyone. Well, now you can find out who died in your house, or any house for that matter, and usually what the cause of death was as well. And we have a way for you to save money when you do. Of course we do. Check out dyedinhouse.com. Save 10% by using promo code OddityFiles, one word, no spaces. Before buying or renting a home, get informed about everything. Use dyedinhouse.com to learn the house history. Again, head to dyedinhouse.com and enter promo code OddityFiles, one word, at checkout, and you'll save 10%. Okay, Erin, I'm going to do a quick rundown of our socials and all the stuff and all the things. Guys, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Oddity Files. On Facebook, just search Oddity Files. And then we have a really cool, kind of secret, kind of not, Facebook group called Oddity Files Fan Group. Definitely click the button on that. We'll approve you ASAP and get you in on all the fun. I want to give a shout out to our producers, Doug Malden-Locke, Ryan Hoke, and Donald Blanchflower. We appreciate you and every single one of our Patreon members. If you guys can swing it, we'd love for you to join us on our Patreon page. We have all kinds of exclusive content we're adding all the time. It's patreon.com/oddityfiles. And if you're listening and you like us, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on every podcast app you can. Also, we cannot forget the TV show on Amazon Prime. Add us to your watch list. Like we always say, make sure you start with season 3 because it's our favorite. Get to know us, get to love us, and then head back to season 1 and season 2. We love what we do. We love all the amazing feedback we're getting from each and every one of you on it. You know, we just kind of do what we do, and you guys are digging it. Our love, light, peace, and positivity. So we cannot thank you guys enough. In case you guys didn't know, we do sell Oddity Files merch. You can find it at oddityfiles.com. Just click the shop link and find all the goodies right there. Okay, Erin, let's get back to it. So I wrote up a little story about the history of this Dybbuk box, which I'm sure you know, but my listeners may not. Do you mind if I tell you a story, Aaron?
No, please.
Okay. So, and feel free to chime in at any time if something's wrong. I mean, you're the paranormal journalist here. I just went to a few websites and wrote a story. So thanks, Wikipedia. Like I said, this week, Zach is going to open the box. And he went into it in great detail on Instagram. So I'm going to tell the story of this specific Dybbuk box and a little bit about what a Dybbuk box is. And that story goes a little something like this. In Jewish mythology, a Dybbuk is a malicious, possessing spirit believed to be starting that over. I'm going to cut that out. In Jewish mythology, a Dybbuk is a malicious, possessing spirit believed to be a dislocated soul of a dead person. It supposedly leaves the host body once it has accomplished its goal, sometimes after being helped to leave the body. The term first appeared in a number of the 16th century writings, though it was ignored by mainstream scholars until S. Ansky's play, The Dybbuk, popularized, words are hard, by the concept in literary circles. So it was this long-standing lore, if you will. I love that word, and I love that you used the word as well, that kind of came to light back in the 16th century. You didn't have movies, but you had plays, kind of going back to what you were talking about earlier. And once that play came out, people knew more about the Dybbuk and what it was, and so on and so forth. It's a really bad spirit, is what I've read everywhere. It's usually has, been described as demonic-ish. We know my thoughts on demons. I don't think they're out there roaming the earth just to steal souls, but that's what this lore is on this. So thanks to Wikipedia for your fancy story and all the words and names that are really hard to say. But now that we know in great detail what a Dybbuk is, what happens when you put one in a box? Well, we're about to find out. And this is, I believe that this is the story of Zach's Dybbuk box. So if I'm wrong, tell me right away. The story of this box started in 2003 when a wooden box that looked like it was just be hanging out at your grandmother's house made its way to eBay. The box is medium brown in color with double doors on the front that open outward. Each door has some fancy grape-like decoration on it. There's a drawer underneath. And then on each side, it has what are those things called? Hinges, brass hinges. It literally looks like something I would find in my grandma's basement. Not very ominous at all. That is until you hear the backstory on what this guy found out was a wine box. So it was for sale by Kevin Manis. He stated in the description on eBay that it was a simple wine box with an assortment of small items inside, like some pennies, so a spooky candlestick holder, a lock of blonde hair, a lock of light brown hair, a dried rosebud, a gold color wine cup, and a granite statue, which actually just kind of looks like a granite coaster with a shalom inscribed on it in Hebrew. For those that don't know, shalom means peace in Hebrew. So weird, but it wasn't the box itself or the trinkets inside that's starting a bidding war on eBay. It was the story that went along with it. According to Manis, he purchased the box from a granddaughter of its original owner at an estate sale back in 2001. He owned a small furniture refinishing shop at the time and wanted to find something he could work on later and give it to his mother, his poor mother. You'll find out later. Apparently, the granddaughter said the box belonged to a Holocaust survivor who acquired it after escaping to Spain and later brought it with her when she emigrated into the United States. The granddaughter supposedly claimed that her grandmother was adamant about keeping the box locked, insisting it contained a Dybbuk. So Manis at the time had no idea what a Dybbuk was, and I'm sure he just, nodded his head, okay, lady, whatever, give me the box, I want to give it to my mom. But after purchasing it, he stores it in his shop until he can get it cleaned up and restored for his mother's birthday. But not long after, shit started to get weird within the refinishing shop. In Manus's own words, so I actually found the wording of his eBay listing, and it's long. So I will try to paraphrase as I go. After about a half hour, he left the shop, the Dybbuk box in the basement. He got a call on his cell phone. The call was from his salesperson. She was absolutely hysterical and screaming that someone was in my workshop, breaking glass and swearing. Furthermore, the intruder had locked the iron security gates and the emergency exit, and she couldn't get out. Yikes. He told her to call the police, and his cell phone battery went dead. He said he hit speeds of 100 miles an hour getting back to the shop. When he arrived, he found the gates locked. He went inside and found his employee on the floor in a corner of my office, sobbing hysterically. Poor employee, first and foremost. I'm picturing her in the fetal position, just kind of sucking on her thumb, going back and forth. So he goes down to the bottom of the stairs, and he says he was hit by the unmistakable odor of cat urine. Ew, Aaron. Ew. Cat piss is awful.
I mean, it definitely adds insult to injury to paranormal activity. I always find you've got walls bleeding, well, not typically, but sometimes in haunted locations, you got the smell of poop when certain demons show up. You get in this case, supposedly the smell of cat urine. It's just you guys are just really damaging the property value of a location when it's how am I, and it's just a terrible place for dinner parties or bringing someone home from a date. It's just.
Does your apartment smell like cat piss? What is that?
It's the ultimate, block as far as any kind of frisky business that might be happening after a date or whatever. Oh, the wall's bleeding again. House smells like crap. Oh, then there's cat pee. Sorry, continue.
No worries. So he got there. They couldn't find any reason for any of this to have happened. And this was just the beginning of the horrors that would continue to disrupt his life. Finally, he gets the box cleaned up. He says it really didn't need a lot of work. He just added a little bit of lemon oil to it to add to the shine. Or I don't know. I don't restore haunted boxes or furniture, so maybe that works. But on October 31st, 2001, these are, again, from his eBay listing, my mother came to my shop. We were going to have lunch together, but before we were going to leave, I gave her the wine cabinet. She seemed to like it. While she examined it, I went to make a phone call. I hadn't been out of sight more than 5 minutes when one of my employees came running into my office. I can't believe he has any employees left. Just putting that out there, saying that something was wrong with my mom. When I went back to see what the matter was, I found my mom sitting in a chair beside the cabinet. Her face had no expression, but tears were streaming down her cheeks. No matter how hard I tried to get her to respond, she would not. She couldn't. Turns out that his mom had a stroke, and it took her a while to actually, regain her ability to speak, but she could understand things that were being said to her and could respond by pointing to the letters of an alphabet to spell out words. I secretly hoped she was using a Ouija board to pick the letters out to spell to her son. But he asked her the following day how she was doing. She teared up and spelled out the words, "No gift." I assured her that I had given her a gift for her birthday, thinking that she didn't remember, but she became even more upset and spelled out the words, "hate gift." I laughed and told her not to worry. I told her I was sorry she didn't like the cabinet and that I would get her anything else that she wanted as long as she promised to get well soon. So, maybe it was just her time to have a stroke. I don't know. He left her alone with it. I'm going to buy into the paranormal on this one. I know you have different feelings on this than I do, but this thing scares me. I'm not going to lie. So I don't understand why, but he ended up giving the box to his sister, and she kept it for a week, and the doors just kept swinging open all the time. So she in turn gives it back to him. He's like, oh, I'm going to give it to my brother. I mean, you're 2 for 2 at this point. What would you do with it, Aaron, if this was you?
Well, that's a complicated question. I'll say this, like let's say I have an object that I think is verifiably haunted or possessed or carries some sort of bad energy with it. Is the ethical thing to hold on to it and not pass it along to someone else, because you are essentially passing along a potentially cursed object, or is perhaps the more ethical thing to, if you believe in it, find some sort of binding ritual and keep it in your own kind of possession, your own property? Or from a research perspective, try to conduct certain experiments. But that's starting from a place of like, if you truly believe that this is some sort of horrible, evil thing.
Yeah. And I think he's still kind of unsure at this point, is kind of the vibe I'm getting, because then he gives it to his other brother and he sends it back because his wife thinks it smells like cat piss again. So that's a thing.
I mean, the cat piss alone is a good reason to get rid of it. I mean, like,
which isn't necessarily paranormal, because maybe the little old lady's cat peed on the box. You don't know. Nobody knows.
Yeah. And that kind of lingers, that smell.
Oh, forever. There's no getting rid of it. So his other brother decides to send it back, and then he gives it to his girlfriend, and she's like, just sell it. Get rid of it. So he puts it up in the shop for sale. A cute nice middle-aged couple comes in. 3 days later, he comes to open the shop for the day, and he finds the cabinet sitting in front of the doors with a note that read, "This has bad darkness," and it's just sitting there in front of his locked doors. And he says that he has no idea what it meant, so he took it home. As one does. His family had more strange occurrences. His sister started having reoccurring nightmares from when it was at her house. And he started seeing shadow figures everywhere. But he was afraid to destroy it, because at this point he was in for, this is haunted, this is possessed, there's something wrong with this box. And he was afraid to destroy it because he was afraid that whatever was in it, whatever was tied to this box, would be released into the world at that point, which kind of makes sense. I don't know. I just make shit up as I go. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the idea of like, yeah, if whatever dark forces could be released into the world again, like if that's your level of, I mean, like, look, to be honest, I like this story as a bit of like, again, paranormal lore.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of skepticism surrounding it. But I don't want to, like, step on any of your story mojo. So
I'll finish the story and then
finish
stomp
and then,
on that mojo, buddy. You just
I'm not going to stop, but
when his girlfriend is just like, and his family's like, you've got to get rid of it. I think on one show at one point I saw he buried it. That didn't work. He moved it to a shed. That didn't work. And then finally it ends up on eBay, and hence this story I just read. And the box ends up changing several hands with all these other people claiming crazy things happening around it. And now the box resides in Zach Bagans' haunted museum, surrounded by salt and sage leaves, until he will open it this week, which I believe was last night, according to Instagram. And I've seen it, and I consider myself a sensitive or crazy or whatever I'm calling it this week. I got no vibes off it walking by it, but could it be because it was surrounded by salt and sage? The story when I was there from the museum curator was, whenever they put sage around it, instead of the sage drying, it rots. I don't know. I didn't witness any of that. But that's my story. My wingmen are webarchive.org, bloodydisgusting.com, Wikipedia, and the Google. So, Aaron, your thoughts on the Dybbuk Box from eBay lore?
Well, a couple things I'll say about it is a handful of years ago, maybe about 5 years ago, I found myself in Kirksville, Missouri, and this is the home of the Dybbuk Box. I was invited to Truman State University to give a talk about zombies, and they have a medical school there that is fairly well regarded. And while there, I did meet, I forget who arranged the meeting, but I did meet Jason Haxton. Jason Haxton was and is, as far as I know, the director of the Museum of Osteopathic Medicine at Truman State University in Kirksville, Missouri. And he came to be the person that possessed the Dybbuk Box. He purchased it off of eBay from a student of his. And so let me say this about Jason Haxton. I drove around with him, and he met up with a couple patients of his, and I got to see this gentleman interacting with folks, and really great guy, really gracious man, very kind. And he is the one that wrote the Dybbuk Box book in 2011, I believe. And that story, that book, is really what popularized this tale. Haxton's book kind of takes the approach of like, is it real? Is it a hoax? I don't know. Strange things have happened. You decide. I ask the questions, you decide. He did say that he had developed strange health problems, that he had hives and welts and whatnot. And he did tell me that he buried, he opened the box and then he resealed it, hid it on his property at a secret location.
He's the one that buried it. Yes, yes, you're right.
And he's also the person that eventually donated the box to Zach. So Jason Haxton, I was able to talk to him about the box, and I've read the book, and I understand the approach that he takes in the book. However, I will also say that, to my knowledge, and I am not an expert on Jewish folklore, but to my knowledge, the idea of a Dybbuk being associated or locked to an item, that's not something that's documented within Jewish folklore, to my knowledge. That doesn't mean that it's not possible, because, again, echoing what I said earlier, there's not necessarily rules to all this. We don't know how things operate. But the idea of a Dybbuk being locked in a box is not something that is popularized. You can have a dick in the box, so maybe you can have a Dybbuk in the box. I don't know, but it's not something that's
the name of this episode.
But it's not like a popular part of the folklore surrounding Dybbuks. Also, I think it is worth mentioning that in 2015, Kevin Manis, who is the original eBay seller, claimed that he made the whole thing up. He contacted a paranormal website called Haunt Me, which is also Ty Gowan's group, and said that the whole thing was made up, and that there's not like a real paranormal association with it. That said, so all of that said,
okay,
I don't know what else has taken place with this box. So let's say it started out as a hoax. Let's say Kevin Manis started out as a hoax.
Yeah.
Something along the way could, create some sort of association with it. Could create
a tulpa.
Maybe. Yeah. A thought form. Yeah. We could imbue it with some sort of power. A belief is a powerful thing. If you believe something is good or evil, it effectively becomes that thing. If you believe you are cursed, you are cursed. And
absolutely.
And, and you can look at that as a supernatural thing or a psychological thing. So I don't know what else has happened. I know there have been multiple people that have walked away from experiences with this, claiming that they got impacted some way, negatively affected. So who knows what else has happened along the way? I don't know, but I will say the weird kind of capper to this story, cap,
Sure.
is that, I don't know whether it's a capper or a cap. I don't know. The topper. I don't want to say icing. I don't want to say icing because it's not really a good thing, but something I've always found very interesting, and I don't know if this has been talked about a lot, sort of the resting place, the main location associated with this so-called Dybbuk Box is Kirksville, Missouri, and associated with Truman State University. Truman State University was also a place that had a famous graduate by the name of Harry H. Laughlin. Harry H. Laughlin was a doctor, but also a eugenicist. And he was, the idea of eugenics was certainly very active and strong in the United States in the early part of the 1900s. And, you know, we associate that with Nazi Germany and the Reichstag, but that law for the prevention of hereditarily diseased offspring, which is essentially the eugenics law of Nazi Germany, was based closely on Laughlin's ideas and models.
Oh, snap.
So, this forced sterilization, things like that. The notion of the Dybbuk and a Holocaust victim coming to settle, you know, this box settling in Kirksville, Missouri, where Laughlin is buried, you know, it does create this kind of creepy irony if there is truth to it. So I find that to be a fascinating kind of connection, and not one I really see talked about at all, really.
No, I've never heard that before. That's so interesting, though. I think it should be talked about more.
Yeah. You know, whatever. I will say this, like, if there's nothing paranormal to this story, the story itself is still powerful. And this is a thought I apply to a lot of paranormal phenomena and reports and everything. The story itself can be powerful because it does remind us this connection to mass murder, to the Holocaust, this genocide that unfortunately so many people have forgotten. Like, it reminds you of this, and rightly so would someone be angry over this kind of, these murders, this genocide, you know? So if it takes a Dybbuk box to kind of keep that story alive, you know what? I think that's an important kind of end result. So,
no, absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of my take on it.
No, I like it. And so, speaking of paranormal caught on camera, one of my favorite episodes is this guy who buys, not this Dybbuk box, but apparently people are creating Dybbuk boxes and selling them on eBay. And he opens it live on his YouTube channel. And he opens it and his K2 meter starts going nuts. Stuff on his wall behind him starts flying off the wall, and he just jets. He's terrified. He leaves. So these are being made now, I'm assuming, and sold on eBay. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's a whole market for people that want to buy supposedly cursed or haunted objects. I don't know whether it's an ethical thing or not, but if people want to buy it, I guess that's their decision. But do you really know what you're getting? And do you know that you're getting it's one thing to go to an antique shop and accidentally purchase something that might have some sort of attachment to it and bring it home. I mean, you know, you talk to guys like John Zappis and he says, you know, be careful of that kind of thing. But if you're actively seeking it out, you don't know, was that something that was just put on there? Was someone actively trying to stir up some sort of activity or attach something to it?
Yeah.
You just don't know what you're getting into. And I also think that there's something to be said about the theory of intention or acknowledgement or invitation. You're essentially inviting this in, inviting whatever potential activity.
Yeah.
Is attached to it. You're inviting it in. It's not accidental. You're willfully being like, yeah, let me buy this, bid on this, and then bring it into the house. I don't know. I just think that if you believe in it
Mm-hmm.
then you should also be careful of what's coming along with the whole
Absolutely.
package.
I've come this close. Like I've started following a page on Facebook that sells haunted dolls. And I'm like, and they describe the doll, what the spirit is attached to. She's 16 years old. She doesn't like kids, blah, 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 blah. And I think about it for like a millisecond. I'm like, I don't want to bring something purposely. I mean, I bring enough shit here, not on purpose, but I don't want to bring anything here purposely. And you don't know what it's going to do. So, and you know me, I believe in that shit. And if I believe in very few mediums, but if somebody senses something on this doll, I'm not going to bring it into my house on purpose and disrupt my peaceful little bubble, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's very wise. I think if you have belief, if you don't have belief, maybe you're still potentially exposed. But if you have belief in that thing and then you still do it, then yeah, you are kind of inviting borrowing trouble, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. So,
or bidding on trouble.
Speaking of my unintentional haunting at my house, I texted you the video of my weird shadows on Instagram. Did you have a chance to look at it?
I did. That was pretty crazy.
So, yeah, I just wanted somebody who's a skeptic to look at it. And I was hoping you'd be like, oh, no, this is this. So
let me say about my perspective as a skeptic. Like, I'm a skeptic, but I'm not a cynic. And I think we should all be skeptics. I think the path to folly lies in being a cynic or being a diehard dogmatic believer, because then you're wearing blinders either way. So as a skeptic, I leave the potential for things to be open. But so when I looked at that footage, yeah, it definitely looks weird. And then my next thought is like, well, to really determine it, I would have to be there and kind of figure out what the deal is with all the lighting in that room. How are shadows being cast? What kind of windows do you have? Like, and is there a way? Because it does not look like this activity passes in front of you. So what could potentially make it look like a shadow is passing behind you? So it's definitely compelling, but as with everything, you want to get in there and explore. And that is ultimately the challenge of looking at any kind of footage that you did not capture. Is there's a lot of variables that you don't have access to.
I will tell you, I did take a picture of the lighting setup right after it happened. So I can send you that. It was at night. So there were I'm on the third floor of my house. There were no car lights or anything like that. But I am still waiting for somebody to debunk it so I don't feel a little uneasy up here in the podcast dungeon.
Well, what I would say is and just that information I didn't have in advance, that it was on the third floor, that it was, so I think that's all very interesting. And then what I would say is try to recreate it. Yeah.
And I have done, every time I do an Instagram, I do those things weekly with Tiffany, and every time the lighting is set up the exact same, and it has never happened
at the same time of day.
So various times of day.
So I would try it at the exact same time, same day of the week, and try to recreate the situation as much as possible. And that's again why it's the challenge of the paranormal, right? Is that we can't recreate it in a laboratory setting, following the same scenario. So then it eludes real scientific definition. That's why it kind of we can try to apply some scientific method, but not really the scientific method, because we can't create a control and recreate it, so it's not a true experiment. Yeah.
Well, Aaron, you just expounded on my story more than I ever could have in my shitty ass writing stories that I do for this podcast. So I appreciate the shit out of you being here, sir. Thank you so much. Tell everybody where they can find you, what you're up to, all things Aaron Sagers.
Well, I appreciate the shit out of you appreciating the shit out of me. There's just a lot of appreciative shit.
A lot of appreciative
but shit. I do not appreciate the smell of cat piss in my lipstick. So so let's appreciate the shit, but don't take the piss out of one another. That said, thank you for having me on. And Yeah, for you guys can head over to my social media at Aaron Sagers on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Also, I am doing the Merica podcast with my buddy Britt. So check that out, download that, subscribe. Spotify, iTunes, Stitchers, iHeartRadio, all the places. And if you could share that, that'd be great. I do a lot of what I call the paranormal pop culture fireside chat during this quarantine/isolation time. So look out for those and head to paranormalpopculture.com. I am trying to update it. I'm sometimes a little infrequent with that, but I kind of connect the dots between the paranormal and entertainment fairly frequently. And also Paranormal Caught on Cameras, new episodes every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. I do have some events like Michigan Paracon coming up, which I really hope happens because I'm super excited. It's a great event. And if you are able, and this
when
is all
is that
past,
scheduled for?
It's in August, yeah. Beyond that, I don't know what it looks like with the rest of my event schedule this year. So stay tuned.
You are preaching to the choir. That is one of the events I've actually always wanted to go to. It's huge.
Great event.
The fans come out in droves.
Yeah, a lot of great people are at it. A lot of interesting workshops, and this will be my second year there, and I couldn't be more excited to go.
Well, cool. Well, thank you so much for being on. And if you ever get bored and you want to co-host with me, I am always your girl. You know that. But good luck with all the stuff and all the things.
Did I give you good stuff or?
All the good stuff. Literally, I totally forgot about the guy at the university getting a hold of the box. So I was stuck on the eBay guy when I was writing my story last minute. So
Oddity Files is an independent production. Intro music created by DJ Jimmy. Wah, wah. 2020 artwork created by me, Kitsie Duncan. The opinions expressed in this podcast are ours, and ours alone. Well, maybe yours too. If you like the show and would like to support us, visit oddityfiles.com and click on support, or go to patreon.com/oddityfiles. Every little bit helps with both the podcast and the TV show. You can also support us by watching Oddity Files on Amazon Prime. It's free to Prime members and dirt cheap to those who aren't. You can find us on all the social media sites at Oddity Files. Keep spreading the word by sharing, retweeting, and reposting. Join our Oddity Files Facebook group by searching Oddity Files Fan Group and click Join. We'll approve you as soon as we can. All weirdos are welcome. Not into that social media stuff? Tell your coworkers, family, even the weird guy who just won't stop talking to you in line for coffee. Oh, and Grandma. Your grandma will love us. We appreciate each and every one of you, and if it weren't for you, we have no idea what we would do with our lives. If you have a story you'd like to submit, send it on in at oddityfilescrew@gmail.com. Also, send in story ideas, silly, weird memes, or just positive vibes to oddityfilescrew@gmail.com. You can also call in and leave that in a voicemail. Call us at 317-300-6699. To contact us about an appearance, reach out at kitsie@oddityfiles.com. When you have a sec, rate, review, and subscribe. We know it doesn't sound like much, but it really helps us get up there on the podcasting charts. And remember, kids, weird is the new cool. Ghost on. Why are you still here? Go on. Get out of here. Turn it off. It's done. Really. I swear. Go. Get. Serious. I'm out of here.